for cutting ties after my family demanded I cancel my vacation to babysit? My name is Megan and I'm 22 years old. You have to cancel, my sister said. That tone of voice took me back 11 years. I was 11 years old, sitting at the kitchen table while my parents promised my older sister, Olivia, they would pay for her private liberal arts college with Parent Plus loans. They told me I would have to get a full scholarship to the state university, and I did. This ski trip to Vail, paid for with my own money, was my reward, and now she wanted to take that from me too. This time I was not going to give in. My hand trembled slightly with anger as I continued to pack. The thunder of footsteps announced the arrival of the cavalry. My tiny bedroom, which was really more of a converted den, suddenly seemed even smaller as Olivia, her husband Kevin, and my parents piled in. Mom's face already wore that look of disappointment I knew all too well. Her voice was demanding. "What's this about you going to Colorado?" "Exactly what you heard," I replied, zipping up my duffel bag. "I'm going to Vail with my friends for the weekend." "But you can't," Olivia exclaimed. "We have Aunt Susan's anniversary party." I did not correct her. "You have Aunt Susan's party." I stopped what I was doing and turned to face them all. Why am I just hearing about this party now? Why wasn't I included in the planning? Mom hesitated, looking uncomfortable for the first time. Olivia jumped in, her voice dripping with condescension. "We all discussed it and decided this would be best for everyone. We go to the party. You watch the kids. It's the most logical arrangement." I repeated her words slowly. "You all discussed it without me and decided what I would do with my weekend. How convenient." Olivia just scoffed. "Well, you can't bring small children to a formal party at a country club. Aunt Susan specifically said no kids." I slung the duffel bag over my shoulder. "Sounds like that's your problem. They're your children, Olivia. Figure it out." Her husband, Kevin, finally spoke up, scowling. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means exactly what you heard," I said. "I have plans. I'm going skiing. Your kids are your responsibility, not mine. If you can't take them to the party, either don't go or hire a babysitter from care.com. Olivia shrieked. "A babysitter? With what money again?" I said, turning back to face them. I felt stronger than I had in months, maybe years. "Not my problem. Let me make this perfectly clear. I am going skiing tomorrow. I am done being your free, convenient babysitter. I am done with you hijacking my weekends, ignoring my plans, and treating my life like it does not matter. If you need someone to watch the kids, Olivia, that's your responsibility as a mother. Stop assuming I will always be there to cover for your poor planning." The silence that followed was deafening. They all stared at me as if I had suddenly started speaking another language. Olivia's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Mom looked like she had been slapped. Dad seemed to be trying to disappear into the doorframe. And Kevin, well, he just stood there with the same confused expression he had worn since his construction business went under. The moment of stunned silence did not last long. Olivia's face crumpled, and she burst into theatrical sobs, covering her face with her hands. Kevin muttered something under his breath that sounded distinctly like, "ungrateful." Mom's voice rose with anger. "How dare you? After everything we've done for you, you're being completely irresponsible." "Selfish," Dad chimed in, shaking his head. "Absolutely selfish." I stood there with my duffel bag still on my shoulder, watching my family become a Greek chorus of accusations. The words washed over me. Selfish, ungrateful, inconsiderate, immature. Each one was meant to cut deep to put me back in my place. Then Mom delivered what she clearly thought would be the finishing blow. The threat I had just heard. "If you walk out that door tomorrow, don't even bother coming back to this house." To everyone's surprise, I burst out laughing. Not a nervous chuckle, but a full, genuine laugh. They all stared at me like I had lost my mind. "You know what is funny?" I said, wiping away tears. "I've been dreaming of moving out of this house for months. I just did not have the courage to do it. But here you are, giving me the perfect excuse, so thank you, Mom." Olivia's fake sobs were forgotten in her rage. She shrieked, "Get out! Just get out!" With pleasure. I pulled out my phone and dialed my friend's number, putting it on speakerphone just to make a point. "Hey Sarah, sorry to call so late, but is the offer to stay at your place still open? Not just for after the trip, but maybe for a few days? Her cheerful voice filled the room. Of course. My spare room is all yours. You want to come over now? That would be perfect. I will be there in 20 minutes. It all started a year ago. Fresh out of Ohio State with my business degree, I found myself back in my childhood bedroom in our suburban Ohio home. I honestly had not planned on living with my parents again, but there I was. The job hunt did not take long, thankfully. Within a week, I landed a solid digital marketing position with a pretty decent starting salary and promising performance bonuses. That night, over Mom's meatloaf, I shared my good news. I figure I will stay here for about 3 months, save up for a security deposit and first month's rent, and then get my own apartment downtown. The clinking of forks against plates stopped abruptly. Mom and Dad exchanged one of their looks, the kind that always meant trouble. Mom put her fork down, her tone carefully measured. Move out, Megan. You know I can only work part-time at the library because of my back problems. Dad cleared his throat. And things are not going well at the manufacturing plant. There have been rumors of layoffs. Mom added softly, we could really use your help with the mortgage and the bills, and you would not have to pay rent here. It just makes more sense, doesn't it? I looked at my half-eaten meatloaf, feeling trapped. They were right in a way, and they were my parents after all. My voice was soft. I guess I could stay longer. Life fell into a routine after that. I would transfer money for the mortgage, pay the utility and grocery bills directly from my checking account, and Mom made sure dinner was always on the table. It seemed okay, even manageable, until last weekend, when my sister Olivia showed up with her husband, Kevin, and their 2 kids. The change in my parents was like someone had flipped a switch. My precious angels, Mom cooed, scooping up the 4-year-old girl while Dad hoisted her brother onto his shoulders. Olivia dear, you look wonderful. How is everything? Tell us everything you've been up to. I stood in the doorway, watching as my parents fawned over their eldest daughter and her perfect little family, the way they hung on her every word, asking for details about the most mundane things. How her garden was doing, what new words her son had learned, how her book club was going. They had never shown that kind of interest in my life. Not even when I made the dean's list or won the business school's leadership award. Mom shouted over her shoulder without even looking at me as she bounced her grandson on her knee. Megan, be a dear and make a pot of coffee. Standing in the kitchen that day, listening to my family's laughter from the living room, I could not help but think about how things had always been this way. Olivia, 7 years older than me, had always been the star of our family show, while I was relegated to a supporting role. I remember sitting at that same kitchen table when I was 11, showing Mom my report card of straight A's. She barely glanced at it before turning back to her conversation with Olivia about college applications. She said distractedly, waving me away, "That's nice, Megan. Olivia honey, which liberal arts colleges are your top choices?" Those years revolved around Olivia's high school achievements. Every dinner conversation was about her grades, her extracurriculars, her college prep. I would sit there silently eating my peas, while Mom and Dad hung on Olivia's every word about her AP classes and campus visits. Everything changed even more dramatically when Olivia got accepted into a prestigious private university. I was 11 at the time, and I still remember that dinner conversation like it was yesterday. Mom had exclaimed with tears in her eyes, "We're so proud of you, honey. We'll make it work, won't we, Robert?" Dad nodded solemnly. "We will take out a Parent Plus loan. Our Olivia deserves the best education possible." A week after Olivia left for college, they sat me down for a different kind of talk. Dad's voice was serious. "Megan, we need to tighten our belts for a while. The loan payments and Olivia's university expenses are significant." That's when things really changed. While my classmates got new iPhones every year, I kept my old flip phone until it literally fell apart. When I needed new clothes, we went to Kohl's with coupons instead of the mall. Christmas presents became practical items like socks and school supplies, but they never forgot to wire Olivia money. "Your sister needs to focus on her studies," Mom would say as she signed another check. "We can't have her feeling stressed about money." I learned my lesson early. By 15, I was joining every club and academic competition I could find. I stayed up late studying not just for good grades but for perfect grades. I wrote essays for scholarship contests until my hands cramped, because I knew there would be no college fund or loans for me. It paid off. I got a full ride to Ohio State, and I still remember the look of relief on my parents' faces when I told them they would not have to spend a dime on my education. Meanwhile, Olivia graduated, got a job in a suburb 2 hours away, and quickly married Kevin, her college sweetheart. Within 2 years, she had her daughter, and her son arrived shortly after. My parents were over the moon. Their perfect daughter had created a perfect family. Now every monthly visit turned into the same routine. Olivia and Kevin would show up with the kids, and before I could even say a proper hello, Olivia was already planning their weekend. She would say without really asking, "Megan, you'll watch the kids while we go to the outlet mall, right?" Kevin and I barely get any time alone these days. The first few times I tried to suggest that our parents could watch them instead. Mom would say, rubbing her back, "Oh honey, you know I have a hard time keeping up with small children, and your father needs his rest on the weekends." So there I was, spending another Saturday watching Paw Patrol for the 100th time, while the kids tried to color on my bedroom walls. Olivia and Kevin were out to lunch with friends, and our parents were pottering around the garden, occasionally peeking in to ask if I needed anything, as if they were doing me a favor. I tried to console myself by thinking it was just one weekend a month, just one weekend of being the reliable free babysitter while everyone else lived their lives. A year went by in this monthly rhythm of babysitting and bill paying. I had almost gotten used to it, almost. Then came the phone call that would turn my already complicated life completely upside down. I was washing dishes after dinner when I heard Mom's phone ring from the kitchen. I could hear her gasp. "Olivia. Oh honey, don't cry. Tell me what happened." Through sobs, Olivia explained that Kevin's small construction company had gone bankrupt without any warning. They could no longer afford their mortgage and they had no savings. Olivia's voice was so loud through the phone I could hear her clearly. Could we stay with you for a while?" Mom exclaimed without a moment's hesitation. "Of course you can. We will make room." My stomach churned. I stepped forward, clearing my throat. If they're moving in, maybe this would be a good time for me to get my own apartment." You would have thought I had suggested burning the house down. Mom stared at me like I had lost my mind. "Megan, don't be ridiculous. There's plenty of room for everyone." "But we're family," Dad said firmly. "We stick together in tough times." They arrived the following weekend with a U-Haul truck full of belongings. I spent Saturday morning moving my things into what had been our storage room, the smallest room in the house, barely big enough for a twin bed and a dresser. My old room, which was twice the size, became the kids' room, because the children need space to play. The 5-year-old boy and 3-year-old girl treated the entire house as their personal playground. They ran through the hallways screaming and laughing, while Olivia watched reality TV at full volume or had long, loud phone conversations with her friends about how difficult this transition was for her. "Kids, keep it down," I would yell as they burst into my room for the 10th time, scattering my work papers everywhere. Olivia would say dismissively, without even looking up from her phone, "They're just playing, Megan. Don't be so grumpy." After work, all I wanted was to relax in my room, maybe read a book or watch something on my laptop. Instead, I was treated to Baby Shark, on repeat through the thin walls, interrupted by the constant thudding of little feet running back and forth and Olivia's loud laughter at whatever show she was watching downstairs. Kevin spent his days supposedly looking for a job on LinkedIn, but mostly I saw him sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through his phone with a worried expression. "The job market is tough right now," he would say whenever anyone asked, "but I'm sure something will come up soon." I would lie in my tiny bed each night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the chaos my home had become and wondering how I had let myself get trapped in this situation. But every time I thought about mentioning moving out again, I remembered my parents' reaction and kept quiet. The first utility bill after Olivia's family moved in hit me like a punch to the gut. I stood in the kitchen staring at the numbers, which were nearly double what I usually paid. The water bill alone had skyrocketed, not to mention electricity and heating. Looking at my bank account, I realized my dreams of saving for my own place were quickly evaporating. That night at dinner, I decided to bring it up. "So, about the utility bills," I began, pushing peas around my plate. "They've doubled since last month. I cannot keep covering all the bills by myself anymore. It is taking almost my entire paycheck." Olivia's fork clattered against her plate. Her voice was sharp and accusatory. Seriously? You're complaining about money right now? When Kevin and I have lost everything. I'm not complaining. I just think we need to figure out a fair way to. Olivia's voice rose. I cannot believe how selfish you're being. We're going through the hardest time of our lives, and all you care about is money. Olivia's right, Megan, Mom chimed in. Family helps family. That's what we do. Dad nodded solemnly. Your sister and her husband need our support right now. This is not the time to be pinching pennies. I looked down at my plate, swallowing the words I really wanted to say. Okay, I muttered. Forget it. A week later, Kevin finally landed a job at an insurance company. Paid less than his old position, but at least it was something. I thought maybe things would start to get better. I was wrong. It's so hard being alone with the kids all day. Olivia started complaining almost immediately. He leaves at 8 and does not get back until 6. I never get a break. Then it started with small requests at first. Megan, could you watch the kids for an hour while I run to Target? Megan, would you mind keeping an eye on them while I take a shower? Before I knew it, these small favors had snowballed into something much bigger. I would come home from work to find Olivia already dressed to go out. Oh good, you're home, she would say, grabbing her purse. Kevin and I are meeting friends for dinner. The kids already had a snack, but they will need dinner in about an hour. We will be back by 10. Weekends became my personal nightmare. Olivia and Kevin would casually announce their plans on Friday night. A shopping trip, a lunch with friends, a movie date, leaving me with the kids for hours on end. Mom and Dad conveniently started visiting relatives more often, usually disappearing just after Olivia and Kevin left. So there I was, weekend after weekend, trying to keep the kids from drawing on the walls while one threw another tantrum because I cut his sandwich the wrong way. I spent my Saturdays cleaning up toys, making mac and cheese, and watching endless reruns of children's movies. By Sunday night I was exhausted. My house was a mess and I still had to make dinner for everyone. One night, after a particularly grueling weekend of childcare, I finally worked up the nerve to say something at dinner. I need to talk to you all, I said, putting my fork down. I'm really tired. This babysitting situation is not working for me. Olivia's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing. What do you mean it's not working? Are you saying you don't want to spend time with your own niece and nephew? Mom reached over and patted Olivia's hand, her tone dismissive. Don't you worry, honey. This is actually good practice for Megan. She'll need to know how to handle kids when she's a mother herself one day. Think of it as training. And just like that, they went back to their usual dinner conversation. Olivia talking about her day, Mom and Dad hanging on her every word, Kevin nodding along. I just sat there, invisible once again, pushing food around my plate. Nothing changed after that conversation. If anything, it got worse. Olivia and Kevin seemed to take my complaint as a challenge, finding even more reasons to go out. They would be waiting by the door when I got home from work, car keys in hand. We're meeting friends at that new restaurant downtown, they would say, already halfway out the door. The kids already had a snack. Thanks, Megan. Weekends became something I dreaded. I would wake up on Saturday mornings with a knot in my stomach, knowing I would be spending the next 2 days watching Paw Patrol and mediating sibling squabbles while Olivia and Kevin lived their best lives. Then came a Wednesday that changed everything. I was at my desk at work trying to focus on a marketing report despite my exhaustion, when my friend Sarah stopped by my cube. Hey, want to do something fun this weekend? She asked, perching on the edge of my desk. A group of us are going to Vail. Just a quick weekend getaway. Fly out Saturday morning, come back Sunday night. The slopes are supposed to be perfect right now. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of excitement. And that brings us to the present. On Friday night, I was in my tiny room, packing my duffel bag, feeling happy about an upcoming weekend for once. I had just folded my warmest sweater when Olivia appeared in my doorway. She glanced at my half-packed bag. What are you doing? Packing for a ski trip, I replied, rolling up my thermal socks. I'm going to Vail with some friends from work. Olivia's face darkened, and that is when she said it. You have to cancel. I spent the next 15 minutes gathering everything I could fit into my car. Clothes, my laptop, important documents, personal items. They watched from various doorways as I went up and down the stairs, as if they could not believe I was actually doing it. When I had loaded the last box, I walked into the living room where they had all gathered. "One more thing," I said, my voice steady. "Since I will not be living here anymore, I also will not be paying any of the bills. The mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, that is all on you now. You will have to figure out how to support yourselves." Mom's face went pale. "But the electric bill, the food." "Not my problem anymore," I said, repeating my words from earlier. I turned and walked out the front door, ignoring Mom's suddenly terrified calls behind me. The drive to Sarah's house was a mix of adrenaline and relief. My phone kept lighting up with calls and messages. Angry texts from Olivia, guilt trip novels from Mom, stern disappointments from Dad. I ignored them all. The next morning, my friends and I flew to Colorado as planned. For the first time in what felt like forever, I spent a weekend doing exactly what I wanted to do. We skied, we laughed, we drank hot chocolate by the fire, and not once did I have to worry about anyone's children or problems but my own. When we got back Sunday night, I opened my laptop and started browsing Zillow. With my salary no longer going to support my entire family, I could actually afford a decent place. By Wednesday, I had found a small but bright one-bedroom apartment in a great part of town, just a 15-minute drive from my office. I signed the lease the next day. My first week in my new apartment was like learning to breathe again. Every morning I woke up to blissful silence, no screaming children, no blaring television, no guilt-inducing sighs from my mother. I could make coffee and drink it while it was still hot. I could spend my evenings reading or watching whatever I wanted on Netflix. The messages, however, kept coming. I did not answer the calls, but I could not help but read the texts. They followed a predictable pattern. From Mom, "How could you just abandon your family like this? We need you." From Olivia, "You are so selfish. The kids keep asking where Aunt Megan is." From Dad, "Your mother is very upset. You need to fix this." The messages alternated between guilt and anger, accusations and pleas. I read them all, but I did not reply to a single one. My silence seemed to make them even more frantic. They were not used to having no power over me. After a week of this, I was sitting on my new couch when Mom's number popped up on my phone again. This time I decided to answer. Mom's voice was sharp. "Megan, finally. I cannot believe you ruined our entire weekend. Aunt Susan's party was completely disrupted because of your selfish behavior. Olivia and Kevin could not go because you refused to watch the kids and..." My voice was quiet but firm. "Just stop. I'm done with this, Mom. I'm done being treated like a servant in my own home. I am done with you all expecting me to sacrifice all of my time, my money, my life, for everyone else's convenience. I'm done being the family ATM and free babysitter while being treated like I do not matter." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Mom spoke again, her voice had shifted to that pleading tone I knew all too well. "Honey, I know things have not been perfect, but we're family. We need you. This month's bills. We're struggling without your help." "No, Mom. I'm done. Maybe someday we can have a relationship again, but it will be on equal terms. No more manipulation, no more guilt trips, no more treating me like a walking wallet or a free daycare service. Until then, I need space to live my own life." I hung up and immediately blocked her number. Then I went through my phone and blocked them all. Mom, Dad, Olivia, even Kevin. I blocked them on social media too. It felt terrifying and liberating all at once, like cutting the anchor lines that I did not even realize were holding me down. Maybe someday I will be ready to have my family back in my life. Maybe with enough time and distance we can build something new, something healthier, with boundaries and respect. Or maybe not. Either way, I am finished sacrificing my own happiness and well-being to meet their endless demands. Comment. Setting healthy boundaries with the people we love is often one of the hardest things we have to do. It takes immense courage to recognize your worth and step away from situations where you are taken for granted. True kindness should never mean sacrificing your peace of mind just to keep others comfortable. Learning to say no is a vital act of self-care that allows you to protect your emotional energy. Many of us struggle with guilt when we start prioritizing our needs over family expectations. Please remember that you absolutely deserve relationships built on mutual respect, rather than endless obligations. Stepping back from an unhealthy dynamic is not a selfish choice but a necessary step toward deep personal healing. I hope today's video reminds you to value yourself enough to prioritize your well-being. Please feel free to share your experiences with setting difficult boundaries in the comments below. Thank you for spending your time with me today, and I look forward to reading your thoughts. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.